As we move into the traffic light system on Friday, restrictions are going to be placed on churches as to how many can turn up to church services. Are they reasonable? And how do they compare to other jurisdictions around the world? Let's check it out. So it's red light or orange light on Friday, depending on where in New Zealand you are. And that will determine how many people can turn up to worship at church or a synagogue or a mosque. Let's just have a look at those regulations. If you're all vaccinated and we're in red light, it's up to 100. But if you don't ask for vaccination status and welcome everybody, you can only have 25. When we get to orange, or some parts of the country will be in orange, of course, on Friday, there's no limits if you check everybody's been double jabbed. But if you don't ask and accept everybody in the building, then you're limited to just 50. And if we ever do get to green, hopefully we will at the beginning of next year, then there are no limits if you check everybody's jab status. But if you accept everybody into the building, then you are limited to just 100. And you know, that seems kind of ironic because churches have always been very open and welcoming to all people. In fact, if you turned people away at the door, then there would, people would say, well, there's something wrong with the church, that you're excluding people. Churches have always been seen as welcoming, but we are living in a pandemic and we need to understand the health status. And churches have been, in my view, very responsible. They've been separating the seating. They've been encouraging mask use. We haven't been doing the hugs at times. You may be using plastic cups instead of, the nice normal coffee cups. I think churches have taken a lot of responsibility and have taken the health requirements on board. But what's interesting is that our whole rules are built around whether you've been vaccinated or not. But what does it look like overseas in the jurisdictions, and how do they manage church attendance? Is it based on vaccine status? Well, it's very interesting to look. Let's take a quick tour around the world. And let's start firstly, let me just go back to the first one. So that's New Zealand. So let's do United Kingdom. No legal restrictions on the number of people that can attend. Masks are not mandatory, but they're encouraged. In the Republic of Ireland, yeah, a maximum of 50, but if you have a large premise, then it can be greater than 50, but you've got to stay in groups of 50. Nothing about vaccine status, and you can see there are lots of flexibility depending on the size of the building. In France, places of worship can open, services can take place without restriction, and health measures are encouraged: mask distancing and ventilation, no mention of vaccine status. In Italy, social distancing of 1 metre is required, and mask wearing is mandatory, and it depends on the size of the building. In Germany, unlimited number of people, medical masks if you're walking around intermingling with people, but limited to 1,000 people. If it's over 1,000 people, then you've got to be tested. And if it's outdoors, no more than 2,000. In the USA, let's take two liberal states. New York State, unvaccinated individuals are responsible for proper social distancing and wearing a mask. For any events that are indoor, large gatherings indoor or outdoor, then it's either vaccination or a negative test. Vaccination or a negative test for those larger events, but that's greater than 1,500 indoors. So that's the big churches. In California, another liberal state, there's no legal restrictions. If you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear the face mask. But so if you're not fully vaccinated, you do have to wear the face mask, but you're not banned. In Scotland, where in fact a whole lot of churches, 21 churches actually took a legal action to the court to oppose the strict mandates that were on churches, and they actually won the judicial review when the churches united together. So the face coverings have to be worn, but there's no mandate on physical distancing, but there is the normal health advice. In Canada, let's go to the west side, Vancouver, British Columbia, no capacity limits, no mask mandate, no proof of vaccine status. Go to the east side, which is a more liberal side. Yes, there is a limit, but it's based on the size of the room, at least 2 meters from every other person in the room. You can crowd a few more people in if you do ask for proof of vaccination, but that is still quite liberal, isn't it? Let's have a look at some of the states in Australia. Western Australia, operate at full capacity, stay 1.5 meters away from people you don't live with where possible, practice good hygiene. South Australia, once again, it's based on the size of the building. 3 people per 4 square metres. So if you've got 100 square metres, 75 people. Must be seated to eat and drink, must wear a mask indoors, and limited to 1,000 people. ACT, you can have up to 25 people, but if you have more than 25, it's a density limit of 1 person per 2 square metres. So 100 square metre building, 50 people. And so for the bigger buildings, you can have even bigger crowds. New South Wales, open to all members of the public. You've got to sign in using the check-in app and wear a face mask indoors. Queensland, 1 person per 2 square metres. So once again, 100 square metre building, 50 people. And of course, for bigger churches, bigger crowds. And Tasmania, places of worship no more than 250, and there's that size limit based on the size of the building. But you can have more than 250 if you register, and you have to meet basic health requirements that a lot of churches are doing. And finally, Victoria, no surprising that quite stringent, fully vaccinated, and it's no more than 50 people. If you don't check the vaccination status, 1 person per 4 square metres. So 100 square metre building, only 25 people, no more than 50 in any facility. So as you can see, those are very strict requirements. But you'll notice that the vaccine status really only came up strongly in Victoria. And in fact, many countries have moved on and are expecting churches to adopt good health practices. A little bit like we do with supermarkets, like we do with medical centres, like we are doing with schools. There's a high trust model, and we're doing simple things that churches, I think, have been doing pretty well, which is separating seats, encouraging mask use, being careful around food, not doing the hug at the beginning of the service. So just, having a look at the New Zealand setting, you can see that ours is very strongly built on treating vaccinated and unvaccinated very differently, and also penalising if you do receive unvaccinated people in. And that's why we're promoting the use of rapid testing, because by promoting rapid testing, then we believe churches can open up to more people, because church life and community is part of our recovery from COVID. Our emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being is just as important as our health well-being. And churches need to be part of that model. So let's open them up. Let's be responsible. We can be pro-vaccination, but we can also be pro-testing, and we can be pro-unity.